Something good just happened. A job interview went great. The test results came back clean. You said it out loud. I think things are finally going my way. And then, without even thinking, your hand shot out and rapped your knuckles on the nearest table. Knock, knock, knock. You didn't decide to do that. Your body just did it, like a reflex, like a tiny prayer you didn't know you were making. We all do it, and almost nobody asks why. But the reason you knock on wood is stranger than you think. And here's the twist. Nobody actually agrees on what that reason is. Some say tree gods, some say the cross, and some say the whole thing started with a children's game. By the end of this video, you'll never tap a table the same way again. Let's start with the version everyone's heard, the ancient one. Go back a few thousand years. To the Celts, the old pagan tribes of Europe. They believed something lived inside the trees. Not squirrels, spirits, gods. Powerful, invisible things that made their home in the oak, the ash, the hazel. So if you wanted protection, you went to a tree and touched it. You knocked on the trunk to wake the spirit inside, to get its attention, to ask for a little luck. And when something good happened, you knocked again, to say thank you, to stay on the spirit's good side. That's the romantic version. Tap the wood, wake the god, borrow its protection. But there's a second, darker reason people knocked. Here's the thing about those tree spirits. Not all of them were friendly. Some were jealous, petty, the kind of spirit that hears you brag. My crops have never been better, and decides, you know what? Let's fix that. So when you said something hopeful out loud, you knocked. Loudly. The noise was a cover. A little burst of static so the bad spirits couldn't hear you tempting fate. You were basically jamming the signal. And if that sounds ridiculous, notice that you still do it. Every time you say, I've never broken a bone in my life, then immediately panic and reach for a table, that's the exact same instinct. You're not being logical. You're hiding from something you're afraid might be listening. Then Christianity swept across Europe and the old tree magic didn't disappear. It got an upgrade. To Christians, the holiest wood of all was the wood of the cross, so touching wood became a way of touching that, reaching for the protection of the crucifix. A quick physical prayer, same gesture, new God. The tree spirit quietly became the son of God, and people kept right on knocking. So that's two clean origin stories. Pagan trees, the Christian cross, case closed, right? Here's where it all falls apart, because when folklorists actually went looking for proof that any of this is ancient, they couldn't find it. This is the part nobody tells you. If knocking on wood really came from Celtic tree worship, you'd expect it written down somewhere across the centuries. But there's nothing. A gap of more than 1,000 years between the old pagan world and the first time anyone actually wrote down touch wood as a superstition. And that first reference, it's shockingly recent, around the year 1805. That's not ancient. That's Jane Austen recent. So one of the folklorists who studied this hardest, a man named Steve Roud, dropped a bombshell. He argued the whole tree spirit story is, to put it politely, nonsense. And that the real origin is way more boring and honestly way more delightful. A children's game. In Britain in the 1800s, kids played a version of tag called Tiggy Touchwood. The rule was dead simple. You couldn't be tagged, you were safe, as long as you were touching something wooden. A door, a fence, a tree. Touch wood and nothing can get you. Sound familiar? Roud's argument is that this is it. The source. The game was all about touching wood for protection. Everyone played it, everyone knew it, and the phrase just escaped the playground. It grew up, put on a coat, and became a superstition that adults mutter at dinner parties. Touch wood, a grown-up version of a playground rule. Now, not everyone buys this. Plenty of people push back that games usually preserve old traditions rather than invent them, so maybe the game came from an older belief we just can't trace. The honest answer is, we don't actually know, and that's kind of the fun of it. Because it gets messier still, there are even more theories floating around. Some say it came from sailors who knocked on the wooden decks of their ships for luck against rough seas. Others say miners who'd knock on the wooden beams inside a mine, not for luck, but to check they weren't rotten before trusting them with their lives. A safety check that slowly curdled into superstition. Take your pick. Nobody can prove any of them. But here's what I find kind of wonderful. It doesn't actually matter which one is true, because the gesture survived all of them. The tree gods faded, the game was forgotten, the sailors and the miners are long gone, and yet your hand still shoots out for the nearest table the second you get good news. We don't knock because we believe a spirit is listening. We knock because being happy is a little bit scary, because the moment something goes right, some quiet part of your brain whispers, don't jinx it. and knocking is how we answer that fear. It was never really about the wood. It's about that very human flinch when life gets too good and you don't quite trust it to last. So next time you knock, and you will, you're not being superstitious. You're doing something humans have done in one form or another for centuries, gently asking the universe to let you keep the good thing. And yes, if there's no wood around, knocking on your own head absolutely counts. If you like this, the next one's even stranger, because it turns out the reason people decided left-handedness was evil goes a lot darker than a playground game. I'll see you there. Touch wood.